This printer can print up to 10 lines per second. This printer can print up to 10 lines per second.
Okay, thanks for joining me. This is lesson 13. And I'm calling it random headline, and I'm spelling the file name RAND headline.html. Okay, so here's the bare bones HTML. Right, copy that, get ready to go. This little text here that you can barely see are my notes. You don't need to copy that down. So go ahead and copy that. Okay, so the way we're going to start here is I'm going to add some HTML elements. And H1 stands for headline or header or something. I'm going to call it ID equals headline. And I'm just going to put a couple dots in there as a placeholder. Okay, and then I'm going to have a paragraph right underneath that. Whoops. And in the paragraph, I'm going to put nonsense. I'm going to say this is some nonsense in paragraph form, period. And then I'm going to take that text, copy, paste it, and then close the paragraph. So this is kind of irrelevant text. It's just a placeholder. And let's start a script. Okay. All right, I'm going to start our script with an array. Okay, the idea with this little project, this little bit of code, is we're going to create an array of headlines, and then we are going to randomly select a headline and put it in our HTML. So I'm just going to headlines plural equal, and this is an array of text. So maybe the first headline is "This is amazing." Maybe the second headline is "This is," oops, I need some quotes. "This is great." And then the next headline is fantastic. Okay, I'm just going to do 3. If you ever do this on a website, which I think is a cool idea, I would do a whole bunch. Okay, so we have 3 in our array. Now I'm going to write some JavaScript so that we can grab this H1 headline. So let headline equal document get element by ID. That's down there, and that is headline. In other words, the ID of our HTML element is headline right up here. Okay, so we have that, and then I'm going to build a function. And the first thing we're going to do in our function is we are going to create a random index, because as you remember, in order to pick an item in an array, we need an index. And as you remember, array index start at 0, so this is 0 here, 1 here, 2. So there's actually 3 different indexes, 0, 1, and 2. So let IDX, that's going to be our index, equal, and remember we use math random, math random, and we multiply it times headlines length. Whoops, you got to spell length right. Okay, so that's going to take a random number between 0 and 1, multiply it times the length of our headlines, which is here. In this case, it's 3. And so the result of IDX will be a number between 0 and actually 2.99999. But we don't want a floating point number. We don't want a number with a decimal. We want an integer. So we need to run that number through math.floor to cut off all the numbers after the decimal point. You remember we went through that earlier. And just for the heck of it, let's, oh, we don't have a name for our function. Function, let's see, I'm going to call the function is get rand headline. That's the name of the function. Okay, and just to let's test it. Console log. The first thing I'm going to test is if I get the correct index. And by correct, I mean it needs to be 0, 1, or 2, because those are the indexes here of our headline array. 0, 1, 2. Okay, this function will not run unless we call it. So let's go up here and say get rand headline, and we need the parentheses in order to call it. Save that. Let's go up here and see what happens. And we need our console log. Boy, I have a lot of files open here. I'm going to get rid of them. Okay, so we need our console log, view, developer, JavaScript console, and there's 2. So let's reload that, see what we get. 0, 1. Okay, so we got 0, 1, and 2, which is exactly what we were going for. And notice here, these two dots are our placeholder for our headline, and this is the paragraph we put into our HTML. So let's move our code over so we can see it. I'm going to shrink this a tiny bit. And move this over so we get the whole thing. Okay, so we got the correct index. So what we need to do is we need to use that index to grab a headline. So we might say something like this. Let the headline equal, let's name of our array, which is headlines plural, and then the index, IDX. And then let's move this console log down here and put this variable name in there. Copy. Okay, so I'm outputting the actual headline. So up here we're choosing an index. We're saying, okay, this is the index in the array. We'll assign that to this variable. Console log, whatever that ends up being. It's going to be random. Save that, run it. Fantastic is the first one we got. See that? This is great. This is amazing. Okay, so we got all 3 in different orders depending on when they were pulled up there. Okay, so that's great. But we want to output it to the headline up here. So we already have a variable for that down here. Let headline equal document get element by headline. So copy that, copy that. So what we'll do is we'll say headline.inner text equals, if this seems a little confusing, just go over it several times and you'll understand what's going on. So You know, when I'm first learning how to code, I had to read code many times before I understood what exactly was happening. Okay, let's save this. So the only thing we did different here is we're putting this headline in the HTML up here. So that's saved. Run it again. There we go. Okay, we got, sometimes see we get several in a row and it doesn't change. Okay. Now I want to show you something really cool. There's a really cool feature of JavaScript called set timeout. And what you do is set timeout is you call a function. And in our case, believe it or not, I'm going to call the function that it's already in, comma, and then you put how often you want to call it. And we use milliseconds. So there's 1,000 milliseconds in a second. So if I want it to call a new headline, if I want it to call this function get random headline every second, then I say 1,000. So in other words, 1,000 is 1 second, 2,000 is 2 seconds, 3,000 is 3 seconds. Actually, let's call it every 3 seconds. Okay, so just to review that for a second, we're up here, when we load the web page, it calls the function. So it calls this function, picks a random index, grabs the array item with that index, assigns that text, in other words, assigns one of these headlines to this variable, and then assigns it to this inner text, which is our HTML. And then it gets down here and it says, okay, wait 3 seconds and then run this whole function again. So it's kind of what set timeout is. Timeout for 3 seconds and then call this function. Now we don't have to call the function we're in, we could call any function, but in this case we're going to call the function we're in. Save that and run it. Let's wait and see if anything changes. There we go. So sometimes 3 seconds are going to pass and it's going to actually call the same index, which means it's going to call the same headline. That's why you have the more headlines you have, though, the less chance there is of it calling the headline twice in a row. Okay, that's why you have a whole bunch of headlines. But you can see how this could be cool on your website where it's randomly picking text and changing your website every few seconds or something. Okay, so that is lesson 13. We're calling it random headline. And thanks for joining me. And I'm looking forward to doing 14. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but join me. See ya.